instead what happens is they move the goalpost a little bit further into the future and say, oh, well, this is just a delay. The dollar's going to crash next year. I said it was going to crash this year, but it's going to crash next year. You have to stop and say, okay, we've been hearing the dollar's going to crash and the treasury market's going to crash every year going back to 2008 and 2009. And every year the opposite.
1980. Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't want to make fun of the New Orleans investment conference guys, because a lot of them are my really good friends there. But a lot of people, the gold bugs, that crowd, they've been saying this since the 80s. Even back in the Market Wizards books, and those were late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, like yeah,
the legend. I remember reading Druckenmiller's interview with Jack Schwager, and he was talking about how the deficits are going to lead to the demise of the dollar, and all these things. And that was Druckenmiller, for heaven's sakes.
Remember, George, in the 1990s, the gold people were convinced that the Fed was manipulating the price of gold because of that, right? The deficits in the 80s was going to lead to exploding dollars and exploding treasuries, and that we didn't see it in the gold signal because gold was being manipulated by the Federal Reserve. I mean, that was taken for given by a lot of people. There's the one testimony by Alan Greenspan in Congress where he said that if we have to, we can just lease gold into the marketplace. He was talking about when if anybody tried to corner the gold market, they wouldn't be able to. And everybody's, oh, see, the Fed is admitting they're manipulating the gold price. Right. No, the gold price was simply saying the deficits didn't matter. The world was booming. Prosperity was legitimate and it was widespread. So nobody needs to own a safe haven like gold. And by the way, you don't need to own a safe haven like treasuries either. Where were treasury rates in the 1990s? They were significantly higher than we have here today because it was it was a legitimate booming period. But you're right. There's all sorts of these it's economics is complicated. Finance is even more complicated. And the monetary system is a complete dark spot. It's a complete black hole. People have no idea how it works. So it is understandable that you come up with these shorthands about how you think it's supposed to work using historical examples, and usually a small subset of historical examples, not realizing that, first of all, those are only a small subset of historical examples. There are a lot of other examples that you're not aware of. And by the way, the monetary system is nothing like what it was, back in the 19th century, or even the earliest 20th century. It doesn't work the same way as it did. So there's a lot of different things that have taken place that these assumptions that people have about how it should work just don't apply. And that's why they never work out.
And from a psychological standpoint, as far as just human psychology, I find it fascinating because it's more than that. Because the starting point is what you're talking about, but then it becomes exacerbated because it's so obvious based on the rationalization that people just assume that it's true, and then everyone says it. And everyone says it over and over and over again, to then you have someone new coming onto the scene and they don't even bother to research it. They never look beneath the hood because so many other people are saying that this is the way it works, that it has to be true.
Everybody can't be wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's what it is, because these are incredibly complex topics. Like anything else, you're depending upon expert opinions, right? You're thinking, this guy over here sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Therefore, he must have done his homework. He must have gone through this, all of the processes that we're talking about. He must have gone through all the primary source material throughout the history. He must know what he's talking about.
And you don't realize he's just parroting other people.
Yeah, I don't have time. It's understandable. I don't have time myself to dig into these topics. So I'm going to listen to somebody who sounds like they know what they're talking about, and they kind of conform to my own biases. Therefore, he says it, and this guy over here says it, and it must be true because everybody says the same thing. It's funny how that rationalization is more powerful than the fact that what they say never happens. It never happens.
Right.
And yet, it's just next year. It's going to be the next year, the year after that, or the year after that.
Yeah. I was reading a study. This would have been, I don't know how long. It was a long time ago, before I retired and before I got into all this. But it was
back when you were happier.
It was on cognitive dissonance. And so what happened, there were a group of psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever, whoever studies this stuff, and they followed around a doomsday cult. And this doomsday cult believed that the world was going to end. It was like, so in like 2005, it was something like that, right? So the year leading up to the date when they thought the spaceships were going to come down and the world was going to end, or whatever it was, the psychologists, the mental health professionals, they were following around. They were taking down notes and all these things because they assumed that the world wouldn't come to an end, and they had all these hypotheses as to what's going to happen. And some of them thought that the people would just wake up and be like, oh, well, I guess we were wrong. And then the other hypothesis was, well, maybe they won't, maybe they'll double down. And sure enough, that day came and passed, and as we know, the world didn't end. And so then the psychologists interviewed the people in this doomsday cult, and like every single one of them just doubled down. Every single one of them. Like not one of them said, oh, I guess we were wrong, let's just figure out why. Every single one of them said, oh, well, we must have just got the date wrong, or they or they must be the spaceships. Well, they're not only
changed their mind,
but now they're taking out all the other planets or whatever it was. But they just rationalized it because the cognitive dissonance was they couldn't bear that like the mental anguish that would create. It's unbearable as for human beings. So we have to just invent a counter narrative with these mental gymnastics. And I think it's pretty much the exact same thing as in economics.
Yeah, I was having a discussion in Dallas at Kenny McElroy's thing, Limitless, which is great, by the way, with an Austrian author. And he was, talking about Cantillon effects, which is a big topic among the Austrian economists. And it's understandable why that is. And he's going on about how, banks, old bastards and greedy bastards are leeches on society. And I said, well, let's think about this for a second. The banking system developed a correspondent network that allowed the entire, at the time, the country in the 19th century was more of a patchwork of regional economies.
Yeah.
And as it started to grow and become more sophisticated, it required monetary systems to be able to, enact payment from one side of the country to the other. And so you have this patchwork of individual banks that got together and created what was at the time a very sophisticated payment network. This was the correspondent system, and it had hierarchies and it had methodologies. It even used, brand new telecommunications technology. So yes, there's Cantillon effects, but maybe the Cantillon effects were the way the banking system got paid for operating a payment network that created a tremendous benefit to the overall economy.
Right.
When I said that, his eyes just glazed over because he'd never thought that before. The thought never even occurred to him once before, and he just got up and left. So I think we're done here, and got up and left. The idea that his position, that there was some other explanation for why this took place, that it wasn't just this bunch of evil, greedy bankers who were leeches on society, that they were actually providing a necessary benefit to the progress of human civilization, never even crossed his mind. And when I raised that issue, you could tell it was so uncomfortable for him to hear it. He just, I'm out, I'm done. I got to go someplace else.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think the moral of the story there for the viewers is try not to let yourself fall into that bad habit. That we're all kind of hardwired to, we're all hardwired that way. Just realize it and try to be as objective as possible. I think that's really what I'm trying to say. And I think a lot of viewers might say, well, George, okay, I understand what you and Jeff are saying, but who cares? I mean, understanding all this monetary stuff, how is it really going to help me in everyday life? And for those viewers, I can tell you that
look at New York City and Seattle. That's how it's going to help you.
Well, but also from a standpoint of your portfolio, because if you understand what we're saying, you're going to have a much better understanding of interest rates. And then you're going to have a much better understanding of what those interest rates are telling you about the economy. And then you're going to have a huge edge as to setting up your portfolio if you're able to interpret the messages and the signals that you're getting from interest rates. But if you're caught up in this, that the interest rates are doing X, Y, and Z because of debt and deficits, then you're blinded to the reality and you don't have that edge. And I know over the past year or so, I mean, I knock on wood, I've been doing extremely well in my portfolio. And I can attribute the majority of it to just understanding these things that we're talking about on this video, paying attention to interest rates and just listening to what they're telling me.
I would, that's absolutely, I mean, for people who are investors, that's absolutely the case. But I think it goes beyond that, George. Why is there a socialist, an out and out communist, now the mayor of New York City, in Seattle? And people on the right cannot fathom why that's the case. And the answer is in the interest rate market. Why is everybody so intent on owning safety and liquidity? Because the economy sucks, and it has sucked for so long. You imagine being a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old in this economy. People on the right don't, I mean, they hear Jay Powell talk about a booming economy. President Trump says it's booming. It's the greatest economy we've ever had. So it's a disconnect there as well. How can the younger generations be falling for this fallacy of socialism? And it is a fallacy. Socialism is one of the biggest evils that humanity has ever created. So you think, how can this possibly happen? Well, it must be colleges that are just indoctrinating people. No, it's the reality. The interest rate market is telling you the economy sucks. And so imagine you're a 25-year-old. You just out of college. You got lots of debt because that's what you're supposed to do. You have no job prospects. You're working at Starbucks. I know you use the stereotypical example. You're living in your parents' basement. You have no hope of ever owning a home. You're not even sure you're ever going to be able to buy a car. And what do you see on TV? What do you see in social media? You see cryptocurrencies flying. You see the stock market soaring. You see all the politicians and the officials saying how great it is. Socialism doesn't sound that bad in that situation. So understand what the markets are telling you beyond just your investment portfolio. They're explaining the entire friggin' world to you. Why do we have such political instability all over the world? Well, when the rate of change in the economy goes down, the rate of instability in politics goes way up. So it's sort of like the North Star for navigation. Whether it be in investments or economic interpretation or in just political commentary. You look at the interest rate market, understand fundamentally what it's telling you. It is a very good guide to at least start building some kind of a picture of where you think everything is.
Or with your business as well, Jeff.
But yeah,
remember what we were talking about before, the bullwhip effect and all of this massive aggregate demand that was a result of government distortions. And this was a sugar rush. So if that business owner, we'll talk about the restaurant guy. If that restaurant guy, instead of looking at his door, seeing this long line, thinking that that's going to last forever, therefore I've got to set up more locations and hire more employees. If he would have just looked at the yield curve and been like, whoa, wait a minute here. This does not look right. And so I'm going to go ahead and pump the brakes a little bit. I'm going to enjoy this demand, but I'm going to stockpile cash for a rainy day. I'm going to try not to hire more employees, and I'm definitely not going to start that new location or set up that new location until I see the yield curve look more normal, let's say.
Even though I've got private credit guys on the phone trying to lend me money to do that.
Yeah. And it would have turned out a lot better for them,
Yeah.
So anyway, we've been going on a long time, Jeff. For people who want to find out more about what you do, where can they go?
Just Eurodollar University, either the website, eurodollar.university, YouTube channel, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called nowadays. I'm at Jeff Snyder _edu on X. Just Eurodollar University.
Yeah, and the podcast is great too. It's on iTunes. Every single morning when I work out, I usually just throw on your podcast really quick. So people can find you there. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. And for all the viewers, make sure you're standing for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism, and we'll see you on the next video.
The portfolio that performs in one economic regime can get crushed in the next. So in this free webinar, we're going to reveal what those 4 economic regimes are, how to identify them, as well as the assets, historically speaking, best positioned to perform in every environment. So reserve your seat now and learn how to prepare your portfolio before the economy shifts again.